They do not know they are prisoners. That is the most effective form of being trapped, the kind that feels like freedom. You walk through the world making choices, spending money, scrolling, and speaking your mind. And yet, almost everything in you was planned out before you even learned to ask questions. Jung saw it first, that modern people had traded their souls to be part of a system that rewards following orders, but calls it being yourself. He called it connecting with the mask, the social role society asks you to wear, until you forget there was ever a real face under it.
It starts quietly. Someone praises you for being good, smart, or well-behaved, and in that moment, you learn that love comes with rules. You begin to buy a sense of belonging by betraying who you really are. Jung knew the price we pay for feeling safe is the slow death of our real self. We become buyers of an identity, not the makers of it. Every trend, every label, and every set of beliefs promises to tell you who you are. And every time you believe in one, you sell a piece of your freedom. Because to belong by copying others is to lose the right to grow into yourself.
People do not notice when this trade happens. It happens when a child is told to stop crying instead of being asked why they are sad. It happens when ambition becomes a shield against feeling small. It happens when success is measured not by inner peace, but by showing off to others. This is the economy of modern slavery, giving your attention for approval, your work for worth, and your image for love. And the money you use is your hidden agreement to follow along. If this feels familiar, stay with me. Something in you already knows this, the part of you that feels restless even when life looks okay.
Jung would say that this uneasy feeling is your real self trying to wake you up from a dream. It whispers through worry, through boredom, and through that quiet sense that you are just acting out your life rather than living it. That whisper is not a weakness. It is a protest. The soul refuses to be managed forever. Most people do not fight back because they fear what freedom requires, facing their own hidden truth. This shadow is not evil. It is simply the truth we were trained to hide. It holds every feeling, fear, and dream we pushed away to fit into the mask. We pay to stay trapped because we are terrified of what freedom would show about us.
You can see this pattern in how people talk. Notice how fast they defend their opinions, their side, and their identity. Being defensive is the bodyguard of the mask. It protects the act, not the person. Because if the mask breaks, what will be left? Jung called this the tragedy of the group man, the one who loses his own self in a social role and thinks he is safe. But safety bought at the cost of the soul always brings problems later. Sooner or later, the signs arrive: feeling numb, being cynical, jealousy, and being tired. We think these are random. They are not. They are signs that your deep mind is demanding back what the mask stole.
There is a reason people pay billions to feel alive again through movies, travel, buying things, or therapy. They are secretly trying to buy back their own inner life. But you cannot hire someone else to be real for you. You cannot pay someone else to carry your hidden truth. You can only stop pretending that the cage is your home. Modern life rewards those who fit in, not those who wake up. That is why real awareness feels lonely at first. When you start to see the system, you lose the comfort of the lie. The ads do not work the same way. The social levels lose their charm, and you start noticing how much of what you once liked was just well-sold emptiness.
Jung called this the night sea journey, when the light of social approval fades and you must find your way by your gut feeling alone. To free yourself from mental slavery is not to fight society, but to stop serving its rules. The rule of should, the rule of more, and the rule of how things are done. Every time you stop worshiping these ideas, the soul grows stronger. And yet, here's the strange truth. Even rebelling can become another mask if you are doing it just for approval. Freedom must be based on awareness, not on a performance. That is why Jung said, until you make the hidden parts of your mind known, they will lead your life, and you will call it fate.
Most people call their training destiny. They mistake repeating things for the truth. They think, this is just who I am, when really it is who they had to become to survive. To question that story feels like a betrayal, but it is actually the start of being honest. Because being honest does not mean being good, it means being whole. Notice how society keeps you too distracted to ever reach this point. Constant noise, endless choices, and always being in a hurry, all to prevent being still. Because in stillness, you might remember yourself. And remembering yourself threatens every system built on you following orders without thinking.
That is why most people pay not just with money, but with their attention, time, and heart to keep up the lie that their cage is a castle. And yet, sometimes late at night, something in you stops playing along. You feel there is a deeper life under the one you show to the world. You cannot name it, but you can feel its pull. Gentle, patient, and strong. That is where the real story begins, and it asks the simplest question. Who are you when you stop being who they told you to be? To answer that, we have to walk into the areas we spend our lives avoiding, the inner world. He called it facing the hidden mind. Not just a thought, but a real journey down into yourself. It is where you meet the parts of yourself that never got permission to exist. The child who learned that love must be earned. The teenager who stayed quiet to keep the peace. The adult who thinks control is the same as safety. All of them live inside you, making your choices from the shadows. This is how being trapped continues. Even when the outside world calls you free. You can tell you are still a prisoner when silence feels scary, when doing nothing makes you panic, because the moment you are still, the mask starts to slip, and the real self begins to speak.
At first, it speaks in discomfort, guilt, shame, sadness, and anger, but under these feelings lies something much more dangerous to the system: awareness. Awareness ends control. Once you see how you have been programmed, the program loses its power. That is why the hidden mind defends itself so hard, not because it is evil, but because it fears disappearing. Jung believed that our deep, shared human mind is both the prison and the key. Everything that traps us also points to what might free us. The same need to fit in is the same feeling that can bring people together in true care. The same dark side you hide contains the creativity you have been looking for.
The system does not trap us by force, but through our own choice to give up what is real. We trade inner truth for outer peace. If you want to see how most people stay captured, look at what they celebrate. Easy things over deep things, agreeing over being real, and acting over being sincere. We live in a market of masks, each fighting for approval, but no one is truly known. And the sad part is that we are lonelier than ever, surrounded by masks that cannot truly touch each other. This loneliness is not a mistake in the system. It is the feature that keeps it running. Because the more disconnected you feel from yourself, the more you look for meaning in buying things.
The more you look for meaning outside, the less you will question what you have become. Jung saw this danger long ago. He warned that when people lose touch with their inner world, they become easy to control. Ads, ideas, and propaganda all live on feelings we haven't examined. They do not need to convince you with facts. They only need to touch your wounds. If you have never met your hidden side, anyone who acts like it can control you. This is why crowds act like one mind. The hidden part of us wants to be part of something, even if it's destructive. Every addiction to approval hides a deeper hunger, the need to be seen by yourself.
You can spend a lifetime looking for mirrors that show you what you hope to be, or you can learn to look directly into the dark and find yourself there. That moment is scary and holy. It is the point where the fake self starts to die and the true self starts to breathe. But most people turn away, thinking the death of the lie is the death of themselves. They rush back into distraction, back into the safety of being normal. Normal, that quiet word for everyone hiding the truth together. The reason freedom feels so rare is because it requires being close to things that are uncomfortable.
To change your programming means facing how much of your life was built on fear. Fear of being rejected, fear of being unimportant, and fear of failing. Jung would remind you that the goal is not to get rid of your hidden side, but to make it part of you. This means letting what you once pushed away belong again. You do not heal by deleting what hurt you. You heal by understanding why it stayed. Look closely at the people who seem most in control. Perfection and being sure are often the defenses of someone who is terrified of falling apart. The mask becomes armor, but also a cage.
Jung saw that our modern anxiety and constant unhappiness is often the cry of the trapped self. When you act out your role too much, your energy goes into the performance, and you call it being responsible or strong. But deep down, something is sad, because life itself was never meant to be a rehearsal. The tragedy is that people pay for their own trap with pride. They mistake following rules for being good, and being tired for having a purpose, and the world rewards them with praise and success. But the soul keeps score differently. It knows the cost of faking it. That is why midlife crises and burnout happen. They are not failures. They are wake-up calls disguised as a collapse.
If you are listening and feel something moving inside you, that is the start of becoming yourself. This is the process of becoming whole. It is not self-help. It is a return to your real self. And it often starts with the simplest, most painful thought: I have been living someone else's life. From that moment, nothing outside can truly satisfy you again. You cannot unsee the cage. You can only decide what you will do now that the door is a little bit open. The system will try to pull you back. It will offer new labels and even spiritual identities. Be careful of replacing one mask with another.
Jung warned that even being awake can become an act if it only exists in the mind. Real freedom is quieter. It does not need to shout. It simply moves through the world freely and is present. And yet, few reach that place fully. Most stay in between, half mask, half soul, learning to live in the space between who they were and who they are becoming. That middle space is holy. It is where old lies melt away and the new self has not yet formed. It is uncomfortable and unsure, but necessary, because changing isn't about adding more. It's about taking things away.
You do not become more, you become real. Stay there a little longer. The cage is still open. To live with awareness in a world that is asleep is both a blessing and a burden. You begin to see how control is woven into culture, not by bad guys, but by scared humans looking for order. We were given this system, and we keep it going every time we choose comfort over truth. Jung called this the mass man, the group personality that fears its own soul. The group avoids the deep parts of life because truth threatens the balance. But without depth, there is no meaning, only work.
Freedom, then, is not just fighting back, but taking responsibility. The willingness to carry your own awareness without falling under its weight. This is why most people choose to stay trapped. It is easier to be told what to think than to face what thinking shows you. It is easier to follow a story than to live a mystery. And yet, the mind is kind. It keeps sending reminders, small signs, dreams, and coincidences. Every crisis is a chance to wake up. But waking up means losing the dream of who you thought you were. You will notice how your relationships change when you start waking up.
You stop acting like you care and start truly feeling it. You stop chasing approval and start just being there. But you also see how much of human connection was built on shared lies, the silent deal not to disturb each other's masks. When you break that deal, you will lose people, but you will also find a new kind of closeness, the meeting of souls rather than roles. Jung said, the world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, it will tell you. That is how being trapped continues, through not claiming who you are. The moment you stop letting the world define you, it loses control. But that independence comes with being alone, because few dare to live without someone else defining them. Freedom makes you feel alone before it sets you free. You must learn to belong to yourself before you can truly belong to anything else.
The deeper truth Jung offered is that the shared dark side of the world cannot be healed by ideas, only by individuals who face their own darkness. Every person who doesn't look at themselves adds to the group's lack of awareness. Every self-aware person takes away from it. That is how freedom spreads, not through fighting, but through showing the truth.
When one person stops blaming others, a piece of the world gets its sanity back. You change the world each time you stop asking it to carry what you refuse to see in yourself. Look around. Notice how modern life makes money from your distraction. Every app, every news cycle, and every fight for your attention is like a place where you sacrifice your mind for excitement. And yet the cost stays hidden because it feels like pleasure. Jung might say that the gods have not gone away, they have become computer programs. They no longer want blood, only your endless attention.
And people follow gladly, thinking being busy is the same as being alive. But the soul remembers. It wants silence, meaning, and depth. That wanting is why feeling down can feel like a heavy weight. It pulls you down toward what you have avoided. It asks you to go deep, not to run away. In that journey down, you get back what was lost. Your gut feeling, your imagination, and your own inner power that no system can own. Going down is the only path to being your own master. When Jung spoke of becoming a whole person, he was describing a quiet revolution of the mind.
It is the only one that cannot be ruined because it does not look for followers. It looks for wholeness, and wholeness cannot be sold. It grows in the soil of honesty, watered by being alone, and lit by the glow of knowing yourself. That is why the world fears people who are truly awake. They can no longer be sold a fake identity as a way to be saved. You will know you are waking up when life stops being about answers and becomes about seeing. Seeing without lying, without defending, and without demanding. You start noticing patterns in others and in yourself, not to judge, but to understand. You begin to feel how every person's mask was once their protection. You stop blaming those who are asleep because you remember you were once asleep too. Caring becomes the natural language of the awake. In the end, Jung did not promise freedom as a final state. He offered it as a practice, a constant remembering that the outer world is just a stage where the inner world acts, that every projection is a clue, every annoyance is a mirror, every fight is a chance to get back what you pushed away.
And as you bring these pieces back, the soul becomes less of a prisoner and more of a witness. You start to move through the world with a quiet kind of power, not control, but being solid. The system still exists, the noise still tries to pull you in, but something in you stays untouched now, a still point that does not change based on who likes or dislikes you. This is what Jung meant when he said, the self is both the center and the whole area of the mind. It holds the world without being trapped by it.
And once you taste that freedom, even for a second, you can never fully go back to sleep. Perhaps this is the real meaning of Jung's work. Not to run away from society, but to see through it. Not to destroy the mask, but to wear it while knowing it is only a role. Not to reject everyone else, but to stay awake among them. Because only when enough people wake up within the dream, does the dream itself begin to change. And maybe that is all we were ever meant to do. Not to beat the system, but to stop feeding it with our lack of awareness. To live as reminders that reality is not what we are given, but what we remember. That being free is not an event, it is a way of seeing. And that seeing starts every time you dare to be real again.